It's my oh, I'm sorry.
Welcome, everyone. I am super excited to have you here today. I am with Lenny Richardson, who has an amazing story. Lenny was actually kicked out of college twice and then went through a serious depression and then had a dramatic change. So, Lenny, tell us a little bit about your background, because to me, when I heard about it, it was like, wow, this is pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to college at Penn State University. For anyone that's familiar with that, it's a pretty big university in the United States. Um, Initially went on an engineering scholarship, and sort of kind of throughout freshman and sophomore year, sort of tried to contemplate what exactly I wanted to do with my life. Long story short, determined that it was not engineering, switched majors, and that caused me to get kicked out. That was the first time I got kicked out. Um, I always tell people it's when I say kicked out, I think it kind of leads to sort of a negative insight, and people think, "Oh, what did he do wrong? How'd that happen?" It wasn't for academic reasons. There was nothing drug related or anything crazy like that. It was purely financial. I lost my scholarship, and they politely pretty much told me, "Do not come back next semester." So
But is that what caused you to go into this depression?
that was part of it. Yes, yeah. That I would say that was a big contributor at the time. I was sort of already going through kind of a little bit of depression, but certainly getting kicked out and being told not to come back, and then you have to kind of figure out what your life is going to be like. That contributed a lot. I think once I kind of got into the real world, so to speak, and had to work a job, that really, I would say, increased how much depression I had. Mainly because I think the people I was around, they were in situations where they weren't very happy. You kind of absorb all of the unhappiness from other people. I think a big part of it too was I didn't feel fulfilled with what I was doing. Pretty much the main jobs was I was working at a gas station, usually in the mornings and early afternoons. And then after that, I would nap for a bit and then work at it was an Irish pub as a dishwasher and a busser, usually until anywhere from about 10 p.m. or 2 a.m., depending on when the bar closed. But not what I had anticipated when I went to Penn State.
Right.
So that
Yeah.
certainly added to the depression.
So fast forward, and you found this system, I'm going to call it,
Mhm.
eudaimonia, and it changed your life. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was sort of kind of working at the gas station and working at a bar, I was doing other jobs on the side too. But pretty much, I kind of took time to think about how did I get here and what's going wrong and how do I fix this. Um, Sadly, at a college campus, there weren't many people around who could answer that question. Um, Penn State's known as a party school, so there were no students who wanted to take a break from partying to help me come up with some good answers.
Right.
So it was pretty much up to me to come up with solutions. Basically, the simplest thing I figured would be beneficial was just to read. And so I'd go to the library a lot, read when I had free time. And beyond that, I would take books out, try to sneak in a little bit of reading when I was working. And I got really deep into philosophy because philosophy is kind of a lot of it's just asking questions and trying to come up with answers.
Right.
It led me down a rabbit hole to Greek philosophy. And through Greek philosophy, I kind of learned about this framework of eudaimonia. Um, Originally, it was from Socrates, but Socrates didn't write things. So I guess his students, like Aristotle, sort of wrote it on his behalf. Um, and for anyone who's wondering what eudaimonia is, essentially, and it sounds very simple once you say it out loud, but essentially what it is, it means the good life loosely, and it's health, wealth, and relationships. So Socrates sort of says that in order to live a fulfilled life or a high quality lifestyle, you need to always be focusing on building up your health, your wealth, and your relationships. And I've sort of gone on to call them pillars because I think pillars is a simpler way to kind of picture these three categories. But that's sort of what he preaches or teaches, at least, is that you need to constantly be trying to improve your health. You need to constantly be improving your finances. You need to constantly be improving your relationships. Um, and relationships, by the way, I always want to point out it's not just about relationships with a spouse or in a dating aspect. Um,
Sure.
it's also platonic, it's business, any relationship you can think of, that's part of what he's referring to. So,
So, I mean, as you said, those are pretty basic. Most of us would say, yeah, of course, especially if we're entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, we need to take care of our health so that we can still work because we're the only people we're relying on to, make an income, right?
mhm.
Uh, most people want to have enough money so that they just don't even have to worry about things, right? Maybe they don't need to be wealthy, but who wants to have to worry about making them, being able to pay the bills every month? I don't know anybody who wants to be in that situation. And unfortunately, so many people are, uh, particularly with what's going on in the global economy right now, right? And then relationships, I mean, as human beings, we're wired for relationships, right? That's who we are. So obviously, there's way more to this than just, okay, make sure you got lots of money, make sure you're healthy, make sure you've got good relationships. So, um, and a lot of what you talk about is time management. So I really want to dig into, because I don't know anybody who's sitting around twiddling with their thumbs saying, oh, I've got all the hours in the day that I need to do what I need to do for my business, for my family, for my health. We all feel stretched so thin. So how do you take this eudaimonia and turn it into an amazing time management system?
Yeah. So it's funny you say this because I realized over years of kind of thinking about it. First of all, in myself, when I first learned about that idea, I realized that I was lacking in basically every category. My health was terrible. Finances, of course, working at a gas station bar doesn't typically pay very much.
Yeah.
Um, finances weren't very good. Relationships also weren't very good because I was working so much. I didn't have much time to spend with people. I wasn't very social at the time anyway, so that didn't help. But kind of over the years, when I tried to initially, I had a kind of business in the past where I tried to help people build up these pillars, and it didn't work out that well. Um, Sort of the reason why is because I think it's too much all at once to try to get
Hmm.
someone who, say, for example, might just have money, but they don't have good relationships and they don't have good health. It's difficult to kind of get them to change overnight. So eventually I kind of realized what's the thing that they need to get all this done. And it's just like you mentioned, they need time management. They need to manage their time better to get all these things done. So that's kind of why I started teaching more about time management rather than directly eudaimonia. My idea was that if people learn more about time management, then there'll sort of be a natural trickle down effect, and they'll be able to build up their health if that's their priority or if that's what they want to do, or health or wealth, whatever, if that's what they want to do. Um, as far as a system for time management, I'll say this, what I tend to find a lot is that people, at least in my experience, people don't really have good goals when it comes to time management. I think a lot of times people take goals from other people,
Hmm.
but they don't really have a goal themselves that they really sat down and identified and really questioned, why do I want to do this? What do I get from this? What's the benefit of this? Um, it's sort of like and this is a perfectly fine goal, but it's sort of like when I've had clients who say they want $1 million. And my question is, why do you want $1 million? And the moment I ask why, you can kind of see it's like, well, I want money. I like to buy things. I like to feel secure, which is fine. Those are all great reasons. But what I try to do is kind of push deep and say, what exactly is the true reason why you want that specific number? It's not about like everyone wants more money, but if you're going to say a million, why a million? What about that number is worth chasing? Why not 400,000? Why not 762,000? Why not 1 billion?
Right.
So it becomes a situation where I think that number sounded good and people repeat it, which is, again, it's not the worst thing in the world. Um, but I think the more clear people are in their goals and the more clear in what they want out of life, the easier it is to reverse engineer what the steps are to get the things they want. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah. So a lot of people watching this, listening to this, they're online marketers, affiliate marketers, network marketers, and kind of the $1 million thing. It's either people want to make $1 million, or the kind of gold standard is, if I could only make $10,000 or more a month, right? Be a six-figure earner. So how do you start with that person? And let's say there's somebody like me that totally believes in having multiple streams of income because, you can't put all your eggs in one basket anymore. So they're trying to juggle building this business, building this business, building this business. Maybe they've got 3 or 4 businesses going on. Where would you start with that person? So I come to you and I say, Lenny, I want to make $10,000 a month. I want to make $120,000 a year, and I've got 3 different businesses going on, and I'm pulling my hair out. I'm crazy busy. Where do you start with that person?
So the very, very first thing I would just say is, why do you want that number? That'd be like my very first question. And I would try to get like as specific as possible. The reason why I would do that is because sometimes the bar is set too high. And in my personal experience, if you don't hit that bar quickly enough, or if you fail too frequently, you give up on trying to reach that goal altogether, which is what we do not want that. We don't want you to give up on the goal. So if someone said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let's say it's a hypothetical person who says, I want to make $10,000 a month. And I say, why? Maybe they'll respond, and this tends to be a somewhat common response. I just want to do more things that I like doing and be able to afford doing those things. So I want to have basically more freedom is kind of the word that gets thrown around a lot. And it's like, okay, what does freedom look like to you? Well, freedom to me, and this is kind of where I think a lot of people haven't thought about it as much. Freedom might be for some people, well, I just don't want to wake up at 9 a.m. and clock in, which is perfect. I think a lot of people, that's the case. And it's like, okay, what can you do to get to not clocking in at a job? Does it mean you need to get 10K? Or could you have your own job developing, I'm making this up off the top of my head, websites
Sure.
or selling books or affiliate marketing, network marketing, whatever? Could you do that thing, make $4,000 and still ultimately get the lifestyle you want? And then as we kind of get into it, they might say, yeah, I could do that. Is 4,000 easier to get than 10,000? Sure. It very well could
Right.
be. And do you think you can do one thing to get to 4,000, or do you think you need 3 things to get to 4,000? Well, I can probably do one thing to get to 4,000. Okay, now we go deeper. What's the one thing you can do that you may have tested out or that you might have experience with that'll get you at least some money? Because you haven't hit 4,000 in this hypothetical yet, but what has made some money, or at least what have you seen people do that can make money? Affiliate marketing, network marketing. Perfect. Let's just do affiliate marketing and network marketing activities until you reach that goal. And let's eliminate, for the most part, everything else that's not getting us closer to that goal. Because I think, and this is a case by case situation,
Sure.
but I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this myself, people who are entrepreneurial minded, they kind of get the shiny object syndrome. They see things that look appealing, and they might see 10 different things that look like they might work, and all 10 things probably do work. But I heard this proverb a while back: the man who catches multiple rabbits catches none. So you're chasing everything, and they're all getting away from you. You're doing a little bit here, and they're not really adding up to anything, beneficial or substantial. So to this hypothetical person, I would say just do one thing, do it as long as possible. And I like to track things after 2 weeks, after a month or so, just see what's worked and what's not been working. And then once you do that, you can kind of figure out, okay, is this worth pursuing? If it's been a month, you probably don't know for sure yet. You should probably keep going. What has been working? Okay, the things that have been working, do more of that thing. And this sounds simple, but you'd be surprised how many people will do something, it works, and they get a new idea and they stop doing the thing that was working before.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm sorry, I'm talking too
Or,
much.
but the other thing that I see all the time, Lenny, is people are looking, because we live in a world of, instant gratification, they're looking for instant success. So they'll start a new affiliate with a new affiliate marketing company or a new network marketing company or, whatever, like shiny object syndrome, just exactly like what you're saying. And they'll kind of poke at it for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks max, usually. And they're not a multimillionaire yet, so they give up. So I'm really curious I think so much of this is helping people understand the definition of what's working. What's working does not necessarily mean that you brought on, you know, 50, 100 new people into your business in those first 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, when you've never done that before in your life,
Mhm.
that you've all of a sudden done that and made X number of dollars. But isn't a lot of it helping people see, okay, so you got more likes or more views on your Facebook post, or you went from getting, 10 views on your YouTube videos to 15 or 20 views. Yes, you didn't get any new customers or any new team members. You didn't make bucket loads of money, or maybe you didn't make any money at all, but you got something, some result that was different than what you were getting previously.
Mhm.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think too. I, without, I'm trying not to be too technical about what I say, but I tell people you have to really set reasonable. I call them KPIs, kind of like in
Yep,
business performance indicators. I tell people you have to set reasonable KPIs. So if you're someone who's doing affiliate marketing or network marketing, it's been a month, and you haven't, I guess, added more people. I'm not super familiar with all of it, but if you haven't added new people, I guess, to your downline or pipeline and
right.
produce the income, that might be fine because that might be normal. But if your expectations are so high and you think that the very first day I'm going to start this, I'll get money overnight, I think you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not looking at the correct KPIs. And
Exactly.
I'll say this. So I'm technically still a real estate agent. I do consulting. I don't, just because I don't like showing properties. I don't like doing listings. But when I first got into real estate, my broker said to me, he had this thing called kind of the rule of 10%. And
Hmm.
he was saying, as a real estate agent, you can't always have your KPIs be the sales you make or the leads you're getting because that's based on other people. You need to have a KPI that's based on what you can do and what you can do alone. And so for him, he would say, do 100 of something first. That's your KPI. So if it's 100 phone calls, do that first. And once you make 100, then you can kind of tweak and see, is my script wrong? Am I just not putting in effort? Whatever it is, do 100 text messages, 100 social media posts, do 100 of something first. And then once you do that, after you make that your KPI, you can figure out where progress has or hasn't been made. Um, so I like that, and I kind of abide by that to this day. I think depending on what the goal is, different KPIs. Like I started drawing recently. That's been another goal of mine. You can see the difference between drawing on day one and drawing on day 100. They'll look hopefully different, and if they don't, you're doing something wrong. but
Right.
but so it's always different. But I think you have to have reasonable KPIs. That would be my suggestion.
Absolutely. So, uh, okay, so we talked about the key performance indicators, but let's get back to this time management thing. I
Mhm.
mean, can we really manage time? I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
I, I've heard people say that you can't really manage time. I guess depending on how they would define that, maybe I'd be willing to agree. I think overall, in the grand scheme of things, you certainly can manage your day, which to me is time management. Uh,
okay.
I tend to find that the people who manage their day the best objectively do better than the people who don't manage their day effectively. Um, I've heard people like Jeff Bezos say, if he makes one good decision a day, that's a fantastic day. And I know he's extreme. Obviously, he's a billionaire, owner of a massive company. But I think that same general rule can still apply. I think if you're someone who doesn't manage your day effectively, you wake up, and this used to be me, you wake up late. You maybe say, for example, you have a business and maybe your business is to make 10 phone calls that day and you don't set up time to do that and you make zero phone calls, you're going to be far worse off than the person, even if they didn't wake up on time, who at least made the 10 phone calls, who at least blocked out time to do the thing that they said they were going to do, which is really just, I think of time management as just self management. It's what do you do throughout the day effectively. Um, I think that's one way people can put it, self management. But if you're not managing yourself correctly, then yeah, you're not going to get results you want.
So, lots of people talk about time management, and I think lots of people, like maybe they'll go to a new time management course or something, and it's, all about time blocking, or they get some new kind of, physical or online day timer or something like that, and they say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And, they block out their time for the first week. And, Monday they do great. And Tuesday they do pretty good. And Thursday they're okay. Or Wednesday they're okay. But by Thursday, it's all out the window. So what exactly is your time management system, or how do you teach people to manage time, and how do you keep them in the game? Because I know I'm totally guilty of that. I hear about some new thing with time blocking or something or other, and I try it.
Mhm.
And, by day 4, 5, I've fallen off the bandwagon, right?
Yeah. So this is literally my system. Pretty much what I do, first things first, after I have a goal set aside, I set a deadline for myself. I set a very concrete deadline. So I might say something along, this is actually just a recent goal I had. I was creating a comic book. I wanted to create kind of a 30-page comic book because I've been learning to draw. My deadline was I need to make the comic book by the end of May. So May 30th or May 31st, whatever date that is. I need
Right.
to have it finished. And that's ink, scanned, everything. The reason that's kind of the first place I start, having the deadline. Next thing is I break that down into what does it take to do the goal that you have. This will vary from person to person. Let's say for it's a business person, you might have to get, let's say, a sales goal. You're If you're breaking it down, it might be get X amount of leads every day or every week or so. From
Right.
that point on, I'm blocking out time to do at least that one thing, the thing that I think will lead to my goal the most. I'm blocking out time to do at least that one thing every day, or at least most of the days, 4 out of 7 days at least. Um, and that's usually what I recommend clients. Just stick with one thing. You don't have to make your schedule complicated because that gets overwhelming. If it's too overwhelming, you won't do it long enough and you'll fall off the wagon. You'll burn out. We don't want that to happen. So just do the one thing. In this case, let's say it's going on sales calls, whatever. Um,
Or maybe it's posting on Facebook, or maybe it's doing something on LinkedIn, or creating a YouTube video or something, because most people are, doing social media marketing in some way, shape, or form, right?
exactly. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Whatever that one thing is, just do that every day or for most of the days. Um, and then from that point on, you need to track and see what's working. If you've posted 3 weeks and nothing's happening, then maybe change your strategy. Now, as far as and to be honest, I think it's really that simple. I think when it comes to the falling off part, I do think a major part of that is accountability. Um, I think there are some people who can keep themselves accountable, and if you can do that, that is fantastic. But I think there's a lot of people who cannot keep themselves accountable, and I think I'm guilty of this too. I think we as humans are great at like justifying why we shouldn't do something or why we should delay doing something or why today's not the best day to do something. Um, so this is what I tell people. You can either find someone like myself who will help you stay on track and really like keep you accountable through weekly sessions. If they have a group like this, I think this is fantastic because if you have a group like this, you share your goals with someone else in the group. They can report to you every week and say, hey, hypothetical person, Jonathan or whatever, did you do A, B, and C this week? If you say no, I think the downside is you feel guilty saying to someone else that you didn't do what you said you would do. And it sounds bad, but that guilt is what will make sure you either get it done next time or you'll quit. And we don't want you to quit. But for a lot of people, they might say, you know what, it's not worth the stress of me trying to do this thing. So I'm done. I'm out. And if that's what you want, that's fine. Um, but I would say those are kind of the main two things. A bit of accountability from someone else that's not yourself, I would say, is the probably the real secret sauce to getting the things done that you want. Um, it's kind of like to me, I did personal training back in the day a little bit. A lot of people, when they go to work out, a personal trainer, sure, they give you a routine, sure, they might help you with your diet. But I think really what they do the best is it's someone that's not you, making sure you get to the gym or whatever your workout of choice
Right.
is. They're making sure you do it enough to see results because a lot of people just don't do the things they need to do long enough to see the results that they want.
So let's tie this all back into, help me with this word, eudaimonia.
Yes.
So let's say you've got your system down now. How does this help you achieve eudaimonia? Is that what we're doing? We're achieving eudaimonia?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, it's always a ongoing process of kind of working towards eudaimonia. Um, I My personal suggestion to people, if someone came to me and said, Lenny, I just found out about eudaimonia, it sounds awesome. Where do I begin? What do I do? I would say if you have no clue, start with health. Work on your health for 4 months, create a fitness goal, just work on it, see where you're at after 4 months. If you're happy with the progress you made, take 4 months, now work on finances. If that's paying off bills, if that's starting a new business, if that's trying to increase your skills to maybe gain more money or get a promotion at your current job or get a new job, whatever it is, do that for 4 months. If you're happy with where you're at, move on to relationships. Relationships, maybe meet more people for coffee, network with more people. If you're trying to date, go on more dates. Whatever it is that you want to do in that category, work on that thing. I would say for 4 months, if you have no idea where to begin, or if you have no idea like what's missing, if you haven't thought about it enough, um, that's my suggestion. And I tell people this is not sort of a there's no finish line to this. This is always something you'll be working on. There's no perfect health. There's no perfect, you won't have the perfect relationships. There's no perfect finances. For anyone that wants to make 10K a month or 100K a month, I can guarantee that once they get it, they'll probably go, you know what, 150K actually sounds pretty good. Let's move up a little bit. Or I think this is the
Yeah.
reason why you see people who are billionaires, because there's no real bar that they'll ever be satisfied with. So they keep doing more things to keep going in life. I mean, that's my philosophy at least.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an ongoing process. There's no end game to eudaimonia or trying to build up those pillars.
So Lenny, if people want to find out more about your work, how do they find out about you?
If anyone wants to reach out directly, my personal website is lennyrichandson.online. If they want to reach out to my company, Productivity Accelerator, the website is productivityaccelerator.org. And there, for anyone that wants to kind of get a structured blueprint on a lot of things I quickly went through, there's free courses on there. They can check that out. And if they use social media, I'm on Instagram fairly
Okay.
frequently, so they can reach out.
So productivityaccelerator.org, is that correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you so much, Lenny. I know this is really just the tip of the iceberg for you and the depth of what you teach, but I appreciate you coming on and introducing us to this concept. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Gloria. I appreciate you for having me on.
My pleasure.